Hello, Internet! This is Chase RedShirtKing Wassenar, and welcome to the Stay Free GG North American Challenger Series Open Qualifiers Quarterfinals. This is presented. I'm your host, Chase RedShirtKing Wassenar. I am the host of the Rough Drafts podcast, and I am joined here by my good friend and co-host, and the guy I'm going to be relying upon because he is the guy who knows much more about North American Challenger than I do, Walter Ceades Fedczuk. Walter, how you doing, man?
Well, I might not know as much as League Esan. That guy lives and breathes North American Challenger Series. But, I am an OG Challenger Series fan. And if you recognize this logo, I probably love you. And I'm very excited that Stay Free GG has invited us to host their pre-show for the quarterfinals. This is interesting. This is always a great time of year because it balances out with, we've got, the championship. You got the LCS championship going on in Vancouver this weekend, TSM versus Cloud9. We've got over in Europe, in Hamburg. We've got the European LCS Championship between G2 and Unicorns of Love. And here, what we get to see is we get to get down into the dirt, into the nitty-gritty, into the grimy challenger ladder, and we get to see which of these players or which of these teams are going to be the stars of tomorrow. Which of these teams are going to begin their journey for a world championship. And while a large majority of these players probably will never taste the sweet victory of hoisting the Summoners Cup, if one or two of them do, we get to be here from the very beginning. So I'm super excited about this. I know League Esan is super excited about this, and a lot of you other folks out there are really excited to be here and watch this. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I mean, first of all, we just always say that we wish Challenger got more attention. This is our chance to do that. Certainly, these games are going to be on Saturday, and I'm much more interested in where this goes than I am about the third place matches in North America and Europe right now. Those teams kind of disappointed me, but this is fun. This will be exciting, and I've always wanted to be that hipster that says, oh, I knew that team before they were cool. That's the entire reason I was a Team Dynamic fan in Season 2. I found them at some Green Forest Cafe open tournament. So this is something that I care a lot about, and I know you do too, and I am glad we get to break this down. And we're going to start with the first series on our list, Relentless Gaming versus CLG Black. This is going to be on stream 2 of Stay Free GG's streams. It's going to be hosted by Doug, Esports Doug Cortez, and Fletch as our casters there. And let's start with Relentless Gaming because this is not a team that I think most people, even if people are hardcore enough to know about this tournament, they still might not know who this Relentless Gaming team was. They were not expected to be a powerful team. Round 1, they beated Monkey See, Monkey Do 2-0. A Final Flash 2-1 in round 2, and Blue Rose Gaming 2-1 in round 3. Certainly they've had to claw their way into this. But Walter, what should people know about this team? What stands out to you?
So when I look at this team, the first thing I do when I look at a team of not to be offensive, but no-name players that I don't recognize any of them, is I look at and I go, okay, well, who have they beaten? Do I maybe recognize a name off of, the Challenger ladder or, playing on somebody's stream, Scara, I'm a Kitty Pie, whoever. And I go back and I look at the players that they've beaten and the teams that they've beaten. And again, it's a bunch of players I just don't recognize, with the one exception being Flash, where you do have a couple of players that have been around the Challenger scene for a little while. Rowhammers, their top laner, is well known when you watch streams. He crops up every now and then. He's kind of similar like Hashashin. Or some of those other guys where you just constantly see them in Challenger games, but you never see them in the Challenger Series. You never see them in the LCS. You're like, if these guys are constantly playing against, a Dyrus or a Hauntzer or a Bjergsen, like, why don't I see them, in the LCS if they're that good? And to be honest, it's just that every once in a while, they'll hop onto one of these open qualifier teams, and it's a bunch of people that all played together on ladder and are like, yeah, that's cool, fine. We'll, throw 5 of us together and see how it goes. And then the other player is Painless, and he's been the one that I think has the most, professional experience. I believe he was a sub for Team Liquid, or has been in the Liquid system just for a little bit. Their Challenger team, their Academy team. So, not to be a knock against Relentless, but the thing that I really focus on is they beat mediocre or bad competition pretty handedly. If you look at their top laner League, he has a 7.7 KDA. Their jungler Vang has a 7.8 KDA. And then you look at the mid laner, Zax, and it's a 3.6 KDA. So this tells you that this team primarily plays through their top and their jungler. That's where most of the players are going to be. You look at League, and he's played Fizz. He has a really good Fizz game, but then he plays a lot of kind of bruisery tanks. He plays Shen, he plays Nautilus, he plays Poppy, where he's really CC control heavy and teleporting in to the rest of his team. Vang plays all his standard junglers, but he also plays Ivern. And when you have these two guys that are really, really good at their positions in terms of not dying, and they're playing these kind of tanky, supportive champions, then that allows them to supplement and to really help their carries carry the game. You see that especially with Tactical as an AD carry. You see some really, really low death lines from him and a lot of damage output on these sort of crit-heavy attack speed champions, Ashe, Caitlyn, Varus, now that we've moved away away from that sort of lethality build. And then Perfect, I think, is kind of interesting to me because for a really kind of raw challenger player, he has some pretty good roaming. He has some pretty good ward control. He seems to pair very well with Vang, and especially when Vang is playing this Ivern, they really set up a lot of vision control. So I think that could be interesting because they're one of the few teams in the Open Qualifier that really does play Ivern with any sort of consistency and any sort of success.
Right. And having that sort of understanding of the map and how to play around objectives, having that vision control, that's something we don't always see in challenger teams. It's very easy for players to fall back on some of the solo queue aspects and play as these kind of individuals going for outplays. But when you have a good understanding of how to play around the map, how to work together on roams, that's something where when they've been able to pull that off, that's when they've been the most effective. I mean, you bring up Vang, his solo queue stats are just absolutely absurd. He's been destroying people on Zac, which I've been loving. Anyone who plays Zac is a man after my own heart. He's got a 5.58 KDA and a 57% win rate on that champion. I love seeing that. I love seeing the Kha'Zix. I love seeing the Hecarim. I think it's going to be really hard to ban him out, and he's been a guy who's been so crucial to their success. He has been great at getting that top lane ahead, and they've been relying on that, though my concern probably comes down to Zats in the mid lane. He's a challenger guy, and I got to give credit for that. Obviously, some of the solo queue numbers are going to be skewed because he's going against such an insane level of talent on a game-to-game basis. But his best champion in solo queue is Syndra with a 2.36 KDA. The guy dies a lot, and he's died a lot in this tournament, especially in their losses. The death counts have been rather large, and I think that's something where certainly CLG Black is going to try to attack that. And let's talk about CLG Black, because if people know anyone from this tournament, it's probably going to be CLG Black. They got a whole bunch of attention for signing Tuesday and all the guys that they grabbed from the Scouting Grounds event that they had heading into the spring. They had a first-round bye. They beat WC Silver 2-0 in round 2. Mm-hmm. They defeated E-Boy Next Door 2-1 in the last round. So a lot of names here that people might understand, Walter. A lot of names people might be familiar with, but does this team, are they as good as the reputation, Walter? Are they going to live up to that hype?
See, here's the thing. So CLG has put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort into this team. They, put them together before the last Open Qualifier, right after Scouting Grounds. They kind of fell flat. They ran into a really strong University of Toronto team that is one of the best collegiate teams in the West. Really, sort of fell flat. And I don't expect, a freshly made challenger team to be very good, but then they've had this entire offseason. They kept them together, despite the fact that a lot of LCS teams, when a team doesn't qualify for challenger, will just say, okay, well, you didn't have a guaranteed contract, move along. These guys did have a guaranteed contract. They, have gone into the CLG gaming house multiple times and practiced under that kind of environment, and they probably have practiced against the main team every once in a while when they need sort of a scrim block filled in. CLG sent them to Europe on a boot camp. They brought over Rico, who I believe was formerly with Fnatic, a couple splits ago, brought him into the fold. They went over to Europe. They played in some tournaments over there. They scrimmed against EUCS and EULCS teams. There's a lot of energy and motivation put behind this to be a successful squad. But at the end of the day, there's just something missing about them. There's something off from a team that has so much experience together. Their macro just doesn't feel like it is where it's supposed to be for a team that's been together almost 6 months, that's been playing consistently for 6 months, that has had a steady schedule and scrim culture around them for 6 months when you look at some of the other teams they're playing against. And talent-wise, I don't think this is the most talented team in the tournament. I think that some of them may be pretty talented. I think Tuesday has been a little bit overhyped, but I still think he's a pretty solid challenger mid laner. Mm-hmm. But you're going to be going against some other talented players in this tournament, and you can't just rely on your talent to win games. You have to have macro. And if your macro is at the same level as a team that's been together for 6 weeks, and you've been together for 6 months, that's just very concerning to me. So I think CLG Black is a good team, but I think they're just a little bit overhyped purely because they have the name CLG attached to them.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, this is the dual-edged sword of being associated with a larger org. Certainly, they have a lot more resources. Mm-hmm. They have a coaching staff that can specifically look over all these things. Most challenger teams would kill for that kind of attention. But they certainly have some interesting decisions that have been made in terms of how they like to organize their macro play. I find it very interesting that Phil, their support, has played more games as an AD carry in solo queue than as a support by a considerable margin. I think only 23% of his games are on support. It was something about 50 or 60% in the AD carry range. So I don't really know what that's about. I will say, if you're going to rely on solo queue gods, Omar God is a great way to start because his Lee Sin is insane. His Gragas is ridiculous. His Graves is great. His Rengar is great. His Kha'Zix is great. He has a lot of different ways to kill you. And he probably will, and he'll do it efficiently enough. And for everything that, we could say about Tuesday, he certainly hasn't lived up to all of the hype. But he did have a 94% kill participation rate in round 2 versus WC Silver. When they play around his lane, when they understand what he's capable of and react accordingly, especially on that Orianna, I feel like he can get into his comfort zone. But are they going to get the Orianna pick? It doesn't seem like they will, based on what we saw E-Boy Next Door do in the pick and ban phase as a reaction there. It's going to be a very interesting series. Walter, where do you think this ends up ultimately?
I think at the end of the day, I'm going to give it to CLG Black. I think that CLG Black has been together long enough that there is some cohesion. Like I said, it's not as much as I would want from a team that's been together for 6 months and has gone on a boot camp and has practiced against LCS teams, supposedly. Against a team, I have a hard time saying, yes, I believe a team that I know very little about, and even though I have watched some film on them, I haven't seen enough. I have not seen enough from them to say, absolutely, I think they can beat CLG Black, and especially when there seems to be such a weakness in that sort of mid lane against Tuesday, which he is hyped up. He played very well at Scouting Grounds. Like, he's a pretty decent player on the ladder. I pause at thinking that, this team of no names, and I say that in the most respectful possible way, is going to be able to hold up to a team that's been together for 6 months. So I say CLG Black probably moves on.
I think that's very fair. I think this is a 2-0 for CLG Black. I think that Relentless, I hope that we get to see more of these guys again. I think they've certainly played above expectations before, and you talk about them being no names. Well, this would be the way to make a name for themselves if they can find a way to really impress people here. But it just feels like they're not really built to attack CLG Black. I feel like if you wanted to take them down, you'd want to have a more powerful bot lane. Perfect right now is in Diamond 1. Mm-hmm. That's something worth considering. I know that Diamond 1 is still way better than I will ever be at this game, but when you talk about challenger teams, that matters. There's a reason that he hasn't made it into Master Tier. So we're going to have to definitely watch that series. It's going to be very fun to see how that all breaks down. But we're going to move on to what's going to be on Stream 1 of the Stay Free GG setup. Loyal Till Familian versus WC Gold. I am so sorry if I butcher any of these names, people. I'm doing my best here. It's got TB Skyen and Nick Lufty Luft on the cast. Walter, Loyal Till Familian. There were some stories, I think, that have now circulated around Reddit. Do we have to give a quick TLDR at the start of this? Because...
So what happened is Tarzan, the legendary Tarzan, who was not allowed to attend Scouting Grounds, even though he's probably the best young North American talent that we have, because of toxicity issues. Surprise, surprise, he's kind of a dick on ladder. He kind of says some not nice things to people. He ruffles some feathers, so to speak. His team, they were in a scrim against another team in the open qualifiers, and apparently Tarzan rage quit this scrim because he felt that Cadriel, the mid laner, did not follow a call correctly, thought he was doing something wrong. They got into kind of an argument on it. maybe Tarzan's correct in what it was, but the fact that there was this argument that happened in the middle of a scrim when everyone's like, guys, just let it go. We'll talk about it afterwards. Let's just play the scrim. And Tarzan, who came off as very immature, just extremely immature, couldn't let it go. He has been obviously replaced from the team. He has quit the team or been kicked, whatever side wants to say whatever. He's no longer with the team. And the dude, the former Team Dynamic /co/GGU jungler, NintenDudeX, will be replacing him in this matchup. And the rest of the roster is... It's a lot of guys that have tried very hard to make the next step, to get into the Challenger Series, or a couple of them have been in the Challenger Series, but have been in, very, very terrible teams. Alarim is pretty solid top laner, but he's bounced around between top and jungle a couple of times. Obviously, NintenDude has not really been relevant since his days on Fusion, and even then, he wasn't all that relevant. Cadriel, a European import. Again, a guy that appears a lot in Open Qualifier in Europe. He hasn't been able to find a team to stick with. We have Pinoy, who Pinoy has been in the LCS. He was on a part of that absolutely god-awful Gambit roster that made me cry as my favorite team, possibly, well, in Europe, because TSM is just... But watch them slowly die, and people refuse to pull the cord on them. Just nope, gotta keep them alive. And Pinoy was like that last gasp of air on that team. And Lopali, who, again, another guy that you constantly see him come up in Open Qualifiers.
8 games on Winter Fox. He has been in the LCS for a whole 8 games. None of them were good, mind you.
Yeah.
But he was there 2015 summer.
Again, it's just a guy that just has never really taken that step to make himself a believable LCS or even a CS player. And now they have this issue with Tarzan on top of it. They've looked pretty good. Like, I'll be honest, they crushed Reign, which was the University of Toronto squad that in the last Open Qualifier beat CLG Black and beat Team Secret, 2 teams that were really kind of hyped up there. Again, University of Toronto is a solid team. They are one of the best collegiate teams in the West. And Loyalty Familian kind of played with their food and just beat the crap out of them. But the problem is, a lot of that was really reliant to me on Tarzan. Tarzan did a lot to carry the teams himself and also to supplement the team around him and to make I bring it up on the podcast all the time. Something I'm stealing from Deficio and the EULCS guys. Take that gold lead and move it around the map. And Tarzan was very, very good at that. And now you're moving to NintenDude, who has not played competitively in a very long time. So it's a very tense situation, I think, if you were a fan of this team.
To put this in perspective, NintenDude's most played champion in solo queue this year is Shaco. Not kidding. There's no joke there. That's not a set up to a punchline. It's literally Shaco. The second most played is Poppy.
See, the punchline to that joke is that Shaco is sitting behind you waiting to stab you if you don't correctly talk about him. So
I mean, in fair, like, I fall for his boxes all the time, but most good players really don't. And it's certainly not a trick I think they'll be able to pull multiple times. And honestly, like, all that stands out to me, I've coached a team. I coached a Turkish challenger team that was trying to get into the TCL. And player swaps, especially in the jungle, are almost always a death sentence. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're making a bad switch. I think the switch was needed. I think that they switched to another talented player. But junglers are such a huge part of the shot calling. Junglers are such a huge part of how you play the early game and what the tempo is, what the style is, what your objectives are, what kinds of champions that you want to play, because you know that he likes to gank for certain lanes at certain times. He has these pathing things with him. That's a huge concern. I don't know how you recreate that in what has essentially been a few days. That's really hard to do, even when you have a massive support system and a whole bunch of people trying to ease that transition for you, and they don't have those things. So I don't know how they do this. I'm certainly going to be very interested to see. There's certainly enough talent on here. You know, even Lopali, who I gave some crap for the way that he played on Winter Fox, but he's got a 80% kill participation rate over the entire tournament. That's not nothing. But I mean, when you think about how reliant they were in games 2 and 3 against Polar Ace on that Kha'Zix from Tarzan, and you remember that there's almost no way Nintendo's going to play that way, I have some concerns, and I especially have concerns when you consider their opponent WC Gold. Because
the promotion darlings of Chris and Alex each. These guys are legend killers in the Challenger Series LCS promotion tournament of boosting teams into the LCS. Let's not joke here. Like, this is some substantial competition that Loyal Till Familion is going to be against. Chris, obviously, a Challenger Series standout. He's played in the LCS on multiple teams. Hasn't been great in the LCS, but he seems to be the bar of, if you want to be a top laner in the LCS, you have to be better than Chris. Alex Each, obviously, near and dear to my heart, the former legendary Moscow 5 Gambit mid laner. Played for Renegades, was okay on Renegades. He has been a substitute for Envious. He appeared in one series this split. In the LCS, the very first week he played while while Lyra was coming over from Korea and finishing up some visa paperwork. Ninja played jungle then because Alex Each is that damn good of a mid laner. And then the rest of this roster is 3 members of the top collegiate team in the United States in Maryville. Like, just absolutely fantastic. Saskio is a great jungler. Prototype is... He's got some, people have some thoughts on him. I personally think he's an underrated AD carry, but because of all sort of the drama and the persona that he puts out around him, a lot of people focus on that rather than his gameplay. He's legendary, known legendary on the ladder for taking his exhaust as an AD carry, and that has been much to the chagrin of some of his solo queue teammates of why would you take exhaust and him getting into arguments about it. And then Papa Chow, again, a member of that Maryville team. Him and Prototype have some pretty good chemistry, and he seems to be one of the few players in North America that can actually stand to, hang out and play with Prototype on a, game-by-game basis. So this was the team that, when I looked at everything, I was super excited for, not just because of the players, but I thought that this squad really makes a lot of sense together.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that point about Prototype, because it's very easy to lump all toxic players into one big conversation, but there are 2 different types of players that we associate with that. You have players like Tarzan, who when they get angry, it actively hurts the team. It is a detriment, it is a distraction, it is something that takes away from whatever they're doing. A guy like Prototype is the kind of person I connect him with Forgiven more than any other type. He's the guy, like, he really wants to win, and he gets so mad when he's not able to win because people aren't willing to go with him on this. And of course that just means that people troll him in solo queue because, oh man, haha, he cares, let's make him feel bad. Like, that's just kind of what people do because the internet has some terrible people on it. But let's not forget, like, he's good. He's really good.
He's the guy who needs to just type mute all at the beginning of every single game and just focus on his gameplay and just yell at your screen when your teammate does something wrong. Don't type it, but if you're pissed off about something, Tarzan should have just muted his mic in that video. Like, just mute your mic, be pissed off, but, like, keep playing. And I really feel like Prototype, when he's in a competitive setting, from the few stories I've heard, is very much that, where in a competitive setting, he really tones down the angry, pissed off at his teammates screwing up because he knows afterwards he can talk to his teammate and say, I think you did this wrong. That might be some team chemistry issues outside of the game, but I really think the kid's underrated.
Yeah. I mean, we can't say what's going on in their heads. What I can say is that they haven't played a close series yet. Their 2-0 victory over UCI Esports Gold and then a 2-0 over IE Team Ignis. They were dominant. This team was so good. Alex Itch in that round 3.
2 deaths.
12-0-15 on Ari in those 2 games. 25-2-27 over the tournament.
Come back to me, Alex, baby. Come back. Come back.
I love it. I was already, when I was just looking at these notes overall, to say, like, Alex Itch, you're too good for this. Like, retire, do something else. But then he does this, and I realized, like, all I want to do is just watch him play Ari or Orianna or literally anything. I just want to see Alex Itch
All he has
succeed.
to do is boost teams into the Challenger, into the LCS. That's what he does for a living. That's how he makes his money.
Yeah, and, I think that this is they're in a position here where, as you said, they have enough talented players. I think they can match talent-wise Loyal to Familion point for point, if not better in some certain places. So where does this go, Walter? Where do you think the series ends up?
I think this goes to WC Gold. I just don't trust the change to Nintendo. We can say everything we want about Tarzan. He's a toxic asshole. Fine. Like, I get it. I understand it. He's a jerk. He's an asshole. You can say it. But you cannot deny the kid's got talent. He is an exceptionally talented player. He wouldn't be able to get so many accounts up that high when they're constantly getting banned if he was not a talented player. Mm-hmm. That being said, Nintendo is way past his day. And it's not like he's built a reputation for himself like a Chris or an Alex each of, sure, I'm not good enough for the LCS, but what I do is I just play in the Challenger Series and make these younger players around me better. That's not Nintendo. He's more the jokey guy on Twitter that makes fun of himself for being, on the fourth team to ever make the LCS finals that's not named Cloud9, CRG, or TSM. Like, that's his claim to fame.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, WC Gold is just more talented. Across the board, they are more talented. Like, if I look at any position, the one position I might say where they're even or Loyal to Familion's a little better is maybe the support position. And even that, I'm splitting hairs and saying, Lil Pally might be a percentage point better than Papa Chow, and I'm going to give the Papa Chow prototype collegiate synergy the benefit of the doubt. There's a reason they like playing together. So I think this is WC Gold. I'd probably say it's a 2-game series.
I'm going to say 2-1. I have some respect for Loyal to Familion. I do believe that Aloran is a very good player. I think that Cadril can do well. I think Alex Ich is going to be tough, but if anyone can keep Alex Ich from being as dominant as he's been, that would probably be closer than he's played so far. Look, I'm not saying they're going to win. I will say this. Not a lot of champion diversity from WC Gold yet on the main stage. We see the Saskio's played Gragas 3 times. Prototype has played Caitlyn all 4 games.
Wait for his jinx, baby. Wait for him to pull out the jinx.
Well, I would like to see someone force them to play it. That's kind of where I come down on it. You've got to force them out of their comfort zone because clearly they know how to do this. We have a lot of proof that they have that strategy pinned down. So force them to do something else. Maybe you get some Shaco shenanigans in. Oh, we'll see what happens. But we're going to move on.
Don't do it, Nintendo. Literally, don't do it. Don't.
Keep the memes alive, Nintendo. I'll be a fan forever. No. Always.
No.
Stream 3. Team Sky versus Cruise Control. Our casters for this are going to be Ariel Rulo Mercury Capeta and Scott Coach Scoots Belmont. This is a very interesting series to me, especially this first team we're going to talk about, Team Sky, because I know you and I have different opinions about how we feel about their mid laner here. Round 1 bye for them. They defeated the Caxon 5 2-1. And then in the second round and then the third round, they beat Good Luck at McDonald's 2-0. I loved Open Challenger Qualifier.
And let me just say, Good Luck at McDonald's was Yasui's team. And Game 2, Yasui did his damnedest Russell Westbrook impersonation to try and solo carry that team to a victory. I was watching Game 2 of the playoffs between Houston and OKC last night, and watching Russell Westbrook lose this lead and trying his hardest to just not let OKC lose. That was Yasui in that game too. Just this Herculean effort of him trying to keep him alive. Let's talk about ManCloud. Let me get ManCloud out of the way.
Yes.
You talk about Alex Each, dude, go retire. Go retire. The difference is Alex Each has boosted teams of the LCS. He boosted Renegades of the LCS. He actually has appeared on the LCS. He's been a substitute for NVS. He's shown that, I can be sort of that, 12th, 11th best mid laner in North America. I still have that. Mandatory Cloud hasn't. He keeps playing in these open qualifiers with these teams, and he just doesn't play well. It's not like the team around him is bad. This is actually a pretty good team. My boy Trance, Acerenia. That's my boy Trance. I love this dude. I love this player. I really want to see him succeed. But then I see him on a team with Mandatory Cloud. And this is the second time I think he's played with Mandatory Cloud. I'm Mandatory Cloud just feels like a sandbag at this point. It's just weighing you down when you have what I think are some talented players in Ceades and Kama and Fear and King Vex. I think these are all some pretty talented players. But then you have Mandatory Cloud, and I get his numbers are okay, but he's just not an Alex Each where he's going to go out of his way to just make a ton of plays. He is super safe. Let me farm it out. Let me play super safe control champions. I'm not going to take risks. These are long, grind it out, farm, late game team fight, push up a tower, get Baron, break an inhibitor, back off, keep farming, wait for the next Baron, get the other inhibitor. Like, it's just, I hate watching Mandatory Cloud play. I just hate it. It's miserable.
Yeah. I'm going to go with not ideal. Certainly it's a playstyle that, you know, for a guy that usually likes to talk about, yeah, let's go to 50 minutes. Let's get Lulu. Let's get Maokai. Let's go all in. Like, look, he's not the flashiest player. I think that's to be clear.
By not even close.
Great game, round 2, game 3 on the Victor versus the Twisted Fate there. You know, absolutely dominant on that. But most of the time, he's okay. That's just kind of who he is at this point in his career. And that's fine when you have the right guys to set up around him. You look at guys like Ceades and Kama coming out of the top lane and jungle, respectively. I have some concerns about how they've been playing so far. It seems like we've had a lot of high death counts, especially from Kama, just not being able to, you know, make sure to play safe, make sure that they're able to get the little advantages that they need. Ceades is not a playmaker. He's certainly on the tank end of things, which, given that he's been playing Rumble, Gangplank, and Kennen, the fact that he only has 8 kills over the course of all 5 of the games so far, that's a concern to me. That's not how that's supposed to work. But they do have this bot lane. You brought up Trance slightly earlier.
My boy.
Asanira now. Just let's gush about this bot lane, because they have 2 AD carries here. They're the only team who's running a roster of 6 players right now. And both of these AD carries have been good. Both, you know,
they have to be. There's no other carry on this roster. All their carry potential is completely relying on this bot lane and these AD carries. And Fear and King Vex have both been pretty good. And Trance, like, Trance is the kind of guy that tries to bring out the best in his AD carry. If his AD carry is laning focused, or really wants to dominate like that, he's gonna play more lane dominant champions. He has busted his ass to learn champions, to like prove to LCS teams like, yeah, I can play Thresh. He'll focus on one champion when he streams and get really, really good at it. And then he's sort of strayed away from that, because now you need to have a little bit more depth in the support pool. If you look on Reddit, there's some joke about like, oh, you know, this champion and this champion. It's like 12 champions have all been played as support, and all the other supports have been played like 0 times. And where's the champion diversity, right? Open your eyes, sheeple. Like this funny, just total shit post. But he has some diversity. He really likes mostly like the AP kind of harassy champions. Sona, Soraka, Nami, Bard. That's really his bread and butter. But he's also had phases where he's a really good like Alistair Braum player. Or he's, you know, just a really good Janna player. He's really worked on his Bard lately, and he just really has been enjoying Bard. We saw him in that game 2 against Good Luck at McDonald's. It really was a lot of Bard plays where he was setting his ultimate up and catching the other members of Good Luck at McDonald's out, and they would beat those players, and then Yusui would try and clean up the fight, and then it'd be like 1v2, and Yusui would have to back out because he's like, all right, I can't kill 2 people. So they really rely on their bot lane to make plays. That is the lane that is the playmaking lane, and sort of the other 3 are supplementary. If they can do something on the top side of the map, fine, you got to do something on the map. But once you get into like late game team fights, it really, a lot of it is on Arsenia's or Trance's shoulders to really set plays up, and he's willing to die for it. He's Kiwi Kid, where he's just willing to die to make that play to set up the rest of his team. So I really look towards the bot lane for a lot of the success that Team Sky might have.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And certainly, you know, it's also worth mentioning, especially as we look at some of these open qualifier teams that don't necessarily have the same support staffs. They're trying to incorporate 2 Koreans into this. Like, we should point out that Ceades and Kama are Korean players. I don't know what their English is like, but there might be an explanation as to why their death counts are higher than usual, or why they haven't been able to make these plays. And certainly now they've had an extra week after having played some of these games. Maybe they've gelled a little bit more. Maybe they're going to come together more clearly. But you can tell that this team just feels so much more comfortable funneling resources into that bot lane, where they can communicate more effectively, more directly, and letting that be the way that they play the game out. So it's going to be interesting to see how their opponent, Cruise Control, adapts to that. Cruise Control had a bye in round 1. They defeated Midnight Gaming 2-0 in round 2. They defeated Twitch TV Guisus96. No way I pronounced that correctly, but we're going with it anyway. 2-0 in round 3. They haven't been touched yet, Walter. Is this a matter of these are really good players that I just don't recognize, or is this a matter of the bracket has really helped them get to this point, and they're going to run into some problems against it? What should be a talented team.
I think there are some solid players here. Again, they're just not players that you have seen on like the competitive stage very successfully. God, our JSD&D was really successful at scouting grounds. He was on the championship team, the team that won, the Team Liquid team. Fusion Saber or Fusion Rin is a montage maker that you occasionally will see on Reddit, putting together 80 carry montages. Cloud9 Winter has been a substitute for Cloud9 in the past. He's been around open qualifiers. Like, three of these guys have all played in open qualifiers. Dokla, Fusion Saber / Rin, and Cloud9 Winter have all played in open qualifiers before. It's really Firefly and God, our JSD&D that are kind of the newcomers to the open qualifier scene, but holy shit, God, our JSD&D. I'm just going to call him God because he is phenomenal. He is brilliant in the mid lane, and when I see him matching up against someone that's so incredibly passive than Mandatory Cloud, this makes for a really interesting dynamic of, is Mandatory Cloud just going to be able to shut him down because he's not going to put himself in a situation to die, or is God just going to constantly pressure Mandatory Cloud and put him in those positions where he died? He has played Lux twice and hasn't died on this champion for a combined score of 17, 0, and 18.
That's absurd.
Urgot into Zed. Like, the kid has just incredible confidence about himself, incredible confidence in his play. You can see it when he's laning that he takes some risks, but they seem very calculated and very, like, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm trying to set up this specific play. He seems, miles ahead of some of these other challenger players, and he's really someone that if this team doesn't work out, which even if they beat Team Sky, I think the rest of the bracket is a little tough for them. This could be a guy that we see on a roster, in the Challenger Series, or maybe as a sub for an LCS team, someone that's really desperate for, some mid lane talent. He's just phenomenal and a revelation to watch.
Yeah, he's fun. I mean, you just look at any of his solo queue stuff. His LeBlanc is great. He plays Echo, which I like. I love seeing. He plays the Cinder. He plays this Lux, which has been perfect both in solo queue and in the tournament, as you mentioned. I love seeing guys like that. I mean, that's a guy who clearly has a breadth of champions available to him. Whenever you see Urgot mid, kind of feel like, hey, there's that Keen guy who got into the LCS because he had these few picks that are really good. And, he was able to kind of move around the things that he wasn't particularly good at. I like the vibes I'm getting from him. I have to ask because, so much of this is going to come down to the bot lane. Do you think they match up in that regard? What do you expect from that 2v2?
Saber and Witcher have been around long enough that they'll have played against Trance. I think Saber has played with Trance before on stream and is like duo queued with him a bunch. I feel like these bot lanes are going to know each other pretty well from ladder. I think they stand up pretty well. The only difference is that Cruise Control doesn't have to rely on their bot lane to be their only playmakers. They do have God in the mid lane that can, make a lot of plays on his own. Firefly has shown that he's actually a pretty good ganking jungler, that he can get out and he can make plays across the rest of the map and help his lanes. Dokla hasn't done anything that's truly outstanding to me, or like maybe think, oh, this guy is a really good top laner, but he's solid. Like, he's consistent, and on a team that has a really, really good mid laner and a solid bottom lane, like, your top laner does not need to be like Smeb. Like, you can survive with a solid, consistent top laner while you have such explosive carries. So this is going to be a really fun match to watch. This is probably the one that I'm the most back and forth on, in all honesty.
Yeah. One last thing just worth noting. Cruise Control. 4 different top laners played across their 4 games. 4 different supports played across their 4 games. 3 different mid laners, 3 different AD carries. Only Firefly has been reliably just switching back and forth between the Elise and the Lee Sin. And you know what? He's the only guy that hasn't played in a challenger event before. Great. Let's lock him into something he's comfortable on. Let the rest of these guys do the versatility and keep the opponents guessing. I love seeing that from challenger teams. I just think it adds this new wrinkle that can help them stand out. So, Walter, where do you think this series ultimately goes? Make your prediction.
This is a 2-1 series.
Yes.
And I'm gonna say Sky wins it because I really want to see my boy Trance in. My heart is telling me Sky. My head is saying Cruise Control probably wins it. But I'm going to say Sky because my boy Trance, I love you, baby. Come on. Go make the Challenger Series. Make me proud.
Look, I respect that. I appreciate it. I believe it's absolutely in play. I also think this is a 2-1. I'm going to go with Cruise Control, though. I think that at the end of the day, you have to have a more cohesive team strategy, and I'm just not seeing that across the board. I'm seeing nice bits from Team Sky. Certainly they have, experience there. They have a lot of potential there. But Cruise Control right now feel like more of a team just from what we've seen so far, the way that they've been able to structure things. So I think it's going to be probably my series to watch. I'm very excited to see how that plays out.
WC Gold versus La whatever it is. Loyal Tilfa Million. Loyal Tilfa Million. That's probably the series to watch.
Like, the key is to have, like, the quad monitors so you could watch all four, because there's
triple monitors!
Oh, man. But you're still going to have to miss one. But we're going to go to Stream 4. Team 8.1. Love that name. Shout out to them. Versus Solaris. This is going to be Christopher Chopsky Pollock and Joe Hardcore Bane on the cast. Walter, I don't know either of these teams, but when I look at Team 8.1, I feel like I should, because they've 2-0'd everybody they've played. They 2-0'd Paleo Tundra in the first round. They 2-0'd Team Viral in the second round. They 2-0'd Team Liquid Academy in the third round. That's a team with LCS backing. That's supposed to be a relevant thing. They've got Shorter Age, they've got Slushy, they've got XP Cake. Like, they've got a lot of...
They got players you know. This is a roster full of everybody you should know. You should know Hyatt's Viper. He's a high-level solo queue talent. Shorter Ace obviously has been in the Challenger Series before, has competed in a number of open qualifiers, played over in Oceania for the team that I will not say their name because they're assholes. He's paired up with his 80 carry from the team that I shall not be named because they're assholes, XP Cake, which the fact that with all the drama around him and that team going on, the fact he's playing an open qualifier and playing so goddamn well makes me want to take back my words where I told him on Twitter he should just break the NDA because I don't think any LCS team will hire him. He is proving right now that he is talented enough to play in at least the North American Challenger Series, if not the LCS. And then rounding it out is Slushy. We all know him from the original Team 8 roster. He's bounced around a couple times in Challenger and obviously the LCS with Team 8. And Executioner Ken, who is a Challenger mainstay, about as Challenger mainstay as you can get. And I say that politely. He is a very consistent player. And when you're looking for support and you're playing in an open qualifier, if he's not on a team, he's probably the first guy you go to. So this is definitely a group of players that you all know, and it's definitely a group of players that, to me, are Challenger Series level players at least.
Yeah, I mean, when you just look at the numbers across the board, especially, Shorter Ace, 9.5 KDA so far this tournament. We've seen him on 4 different champions. His Elise has been absolutely absurd. We're looking at, 19, 3, and 25 on Elise over the course of those 3 games. Okay, that's just a thing that exists. Good luck stopping that. We're seeing Slushy. He's playing that Vladimir. I love seeing a good Vladimir. I love seeing the way he's performing on that. And yeah, when you have that synergy from this TM team that shall not be named, I think that matters. I think that they have this experience together, and hey, if they could play in that environment, they can play anywhere. Like, this is easy. Yeah. This is life going well.
They get air conditioning in North America. Like, it's still winter up here. Like, it's nice and cool. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, they're doing great. But there's a team that's hoping they won't be doing so great after this quarterfinals matchup, and that's going to be Solaris here. Solaris, I can say, while I should have known Team 8.1, and I think that once I saw the name of these guys, I started putting it together. I don't know how to put Solaris together. They've been playing quite well. They 2-0'd Supernova Esports in the first round 2-0. They defeated WC Blue 2-1 in the second round, and then they defeated Kinesis Esports in 2-0 in the third round. So certainly they've been playing well, playing effectively. So what should we be watching? If you're like me and you don't know who I should be latching on to, who's the guy to watch?
So I definitely go back to, Relentless with this team. I don't recognize any of these players. So I look at who they beat. The other teams that they beat are kind of like mainstay, like tier 3, tier 4 challenger teams when you look at Supernova and Kinesis. And then you look at WC Blue. Again, not too many players well known other than Nijaki. They've got a couple of collegiate players from Columbia College. They had Misty Stumpy and CCD in their support and their top laner and their support. Blabberfish, their jungler, is top 10 on the challenger leader, and then it's Nijaki. Like, Nijaki was the big star of that team, which, if you don't know who Nijaki is, bro, like, you're too young for me. Like, I can't. If you don't know Nijaki, I don't want to talk to you. You know, it kind of a haphazard, thrown together team. But they're playing just really well. It's really crisp play. They're mainly relying on their mid laner to be their primary carry, but they also have like a solid top and jungler and support to kind of supplement the playmaking around them. Cyclos, the AD carry, is kind of weak. He's definitely had some issues. He definitely had issues in the WC Blue series, where he's against a guy who has a lot of open qualifier experience and strife, but again is not someone that you really recognize his name. Is like, oh, that's a really good AD carry. It's like he's losing to like a Prototype or a Pinoy or somebody whose name you recognize. At the end of the day, it's just like a team that has a lot of good players. They've shown a lot of promise. The problem is they're running into the second or maybe most talented team that's left in the top 8 when you consider between Team 8.1 and WC Gold. Like, there's a lot of veteran experience on this team. I think Hyam Viper is the only guy who really doesn't have a lot of, like, Challenger or LCS experience. And you got 5 guys that really don't. But I think Mist, the mid laner, is, out of the 5 of them, has probably shown the most promise to me.
Yeah, Mist right now, if you're looking at his stats in solo queue, his Orianna 3.58 KDA, 67% of games won on that champion. Ari currently he's won 81% of his games. Only 16 played on this account, but it was a 3.95 KDA. The guy has this huge carry potential, and it's certainly something that we've seen come out for them so far in this tournament. He's played the LeBlanc quite well. That's something that we've seen them fall back onto. We've seen him play a little bit of Victor, a little bit of Jace, so he has that poke potential as well. So those are certainly things that they're going to want to watch for. I will say I'm a little worried about the top lane, and I know that Matthews has been playing okay so far, but he is Diamond 1. And while you look at guys, as far as solo queue go, and you say, I guess it's fine, a support especially, like as long as they're super smart, you can cover for that. Mm-hmm. If you look at his game-by-game stats, the 1-6-10 game on Gragas in Game 1 against Supernova Esports, that's concerning to me. A 0-3-1 game on Poppy in Game 1 against WC Blue, that's concerning to me. I feel like he has 2 really good games in that round 3 victory over Kinesis Esports that's hiding the fact that so far this tournament he's been very middle of the road at best. Mm-hmm. And when you look at just the quality of guys around him, this is a team with 3 challenger players right now, which surprisingly, despite some of these guys being bigger names, it's really hard to get into challenger. Having 3 guys out of your 5 that are in challenger is very impressive. These are strong solo queue players, but they're going to have to cover for that in a way that I don't think they've had to deal with so far in this tournament. And they're going to have to deal with that experience gap, which I don't think they've played a team that has nearly the same experience that a team 8.1 is going to bring. So Walter, all of that said, who do you think wins the series?
Solaris are going to lose the series, but at the end, I think they're ultimately the true winners of this tournament because they have by far the best player name on their roster. I just want to shout out their support. T Dollars, a.k.a. T Money. I love that name. I love open qualifiers because you get things like, Good Luck at McDonald's or like all these weird names. Like the E-Boy one that was up there earlier. Mm-hmm. E-Boy Next Door. Again, T Dollars, aka T Money. Like, I love open qualifiers because you just get really funny stuff like that. So, but Team 8.1 I think takes this by far.
Yeah, I think this is a 2-0 for Team 8.1, and that's not an insult to Solaris. Just like we said about Relentless Gaming at the top. Like, congratulations for getting this far. You're in the quarterfinals. I think that That's certainly farther than maybe both of those teams expected to go. And I would love to be surprised by these guys. I certainly think, especially Solaris, they have a lot of individual talent that can come to the forefront, especially if they've looked back over those first 3 rounds and looked at how they can get those little improvements. But it's certainly going to be a tall task for them. They've got a lot to learn in a very short period of time. Now, Walter, that's going to be it for the quarterfinals, but the semifinals follow right after. So if you had to pick right now, and obviously we haven't seen how the quarterfinals play out, but who do you think are our 2 teams that are going to be playing in the finals? If you had to just, looking at the bracket, looking at everything we've taken in.
Team 8.1 and WC Gold. Those are the 2 most talented teams. And when you look at tournaments like this, it comes down to what teams have the most talent. I think CLG Black could be a surprise. Maybe maybe beat WC Gold and take that. But at the end of the day, I think it's Team 8.1 and WC Gold. I think those are our 2 final teams. And those would be the 2 teams that will be playing against Delta Fox and Team Gates.
I see, this is boring because I agree with you. I think that's absolutely the way it should go. WC Gold, so many. Alex Ich is known for this. This is what he does, and it's what he's probably going to continue to do because I don't think there's an LCS spot waiting for him anytime soon. As good as he's been against Challenger guys, I think we kind of know where his ceiling is.
It's okay to admit I'm right because I am the Rough Drafts Podcast Guess the Line champion.
That's true.
I'm right, baby. Drink it in, man. Drink it in. I am the champion. So, yes, it would only make sense that I was correct.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a good or bad thing that there are no betting lines for these series. I'm not sure what it would have to convince someone, but it is kind of sad that I was going through prep and thinking to myself, where would the line be?
Exactly. I was thinking about that. The Team Sky versus Cruise Control game might be, Cruise Control is probably, plus 125 odds. And, I would take that. I'd take plus 125 for Cruise Control to beat Sky. That'd be pretty close. I'd like that odd.
Well, we might have to come up with our own betting system here. We'll have to figure that out. But right now, Stay Free GG has been figuring all this stuff out for you guys. The fact that we're having a 4-stream broadcast is awesome. And shout out to everybody involved. Shout out to Amanda Sage Gnosis on Twitter for helping to put all of this together at the last minute. Shout out to everybody who's going to be casting. Shout out to all you guys that are watching and all of you that are going to be listening to this right now. We appreciate you. We always do. And definitely these are going to be some fun games to watch. Hopefully we will be back. I don't know exactly how the schedule is going to break down, but I had a lot of fun doing this and I'd love to do it again. Walter, where can the nice people at home find you if they want to talk to you about anything you said on the show today?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find me at Ceades_LOL. Just once again, thank you to StayFree.gg for asking us to come on. You guys can follow our podcast at Rough Drafts Pod. We do a bi-weekly show where we talk about the EULCS and we talk about the NALCS, and I'm sure we will have a lot to say after the 3rd place and finals that happen in both North America and Europe. So go ahead, give that a follow. Give it a listen if you guys enjoyed this. There is more of us on our YouTube channel, on all of our social media. So, once again, thanks so much to Stay Free GG.
Yeah, absolutely. We're Rough Drafts Podcast on YouTube. We're soundcloud.com/esportsroughdrafts if you like the audio stuff. You can find me at RedShirtKing. I'll be tweeting a lot about Roccat moves during the off season, assuming they do something. I don't know, but I'm really anxious to find out. Please, guys, don't ruin this for me. We have hope again. And I have a lot of hope for this tournament. I think that there are a lot of interesting series that are going to play out. I want a couple of these teams to prove us wrong. I want to see a couple of these teams prove us absolutely right. I can't wait to watch. Hopefully you guys can either. And until next time, goodbye, Internet.